So, okay, so we've got a great crowd. It's going to be easy, interactive. Are there any specific questions that anyone wants to know about from a financial planning standpoint that they want me to address? A hush falls over the crowd. Okay, that's fine. I'm prepared for that as well. Uh, you didn't have to. I could have just rolled, but that's okay. Go ahead.
My question to you is, obviously, there's a vast experience level across the crowd. You got me at the twilight of their career.
You got some years left in you.
Yeah, we've already got some money put aside, so I'm going to live the life of luxury as long as the tax man doesn't take it away. Well, what do these kids do? You know, is it, you know, everybody says 10%, you should bank 10%. You know, we talked about heuristics. I mean, obviously, you're going to have to squeeze as much money as possible out of your income to pay your bills, pay your student loans. I'm sure that's part of your plan. But when is too late? When is starting too late a bad idea?
What is that? It's like the old Chinese proverb, like when's the best time to plant a tree is 100 years ago. When's the next best time today? So the quicker you could start planning, obviously, the better. I think this generation, so really quick, I guess some background. My name's Travis Scribner, for those who don't know. I'm the managing partner of Westpac Wealth Partners. We do a ton of work with the Dental Society. I think one of the things that they spoke to that was really powerful was finding a good team, and the fact that they work specifically in the dental community, I think is a huge plus. So finding people who speak your language is powerful, and making sure that your collateral professionals are working with one another, whether it's your accountant, your financial advisor, your insurance people. You want all those people working on the same page and working for you. So I can speak extremely highly to the work that they do. A number of my dental clients work directly with those guys. I think it's rather fitting that the title of this course is The Business of Dentistry. I'm a firm believer. So there's not many things I'm good at. I'm really good at my job, right? My car breaks down, I can't change the oil. If I need to fix something around the house, I can't do any of that stuff. I'm a firm believer. My dad, I learned that from my dad, I think. My dad would say, I always stimulate the economy, because if everybody did everything themselves, people would be out of work. So I'm a firm believer in hiring professionals to be professionals. And so you speak about the business of dentistry. At the end of the day, you're all great dentists, and that's what you want to be doing. So if you can surround yourselves with good collateral professionals like these guys to handle the business side of things for you, understand obviously what they're doing in the kitchen, but if you can hire people to be professionals, it'll allow you to grow your practice and get back to doing what it is that you want to do, which is, you know, being a successful dentist. Speaking to Dr. Weinman's question, when is the best time to start? Immediately. And actually the number I would say is 15 to 20%. I think you guys have done a really good job. Your generation of dentists has done a great job of, I'm going to throw you under the bus a little bit, Dr. Weinman, learning from Dr. Weinman's generation of dentists, because there's a lot of dentists that are in that age bracket, Dr. Weinman not being one of them, that are going to have to die in the chair, as you mentioned so eloquently earlier, not by choice, right? Because they haven't taken the appropriate steps to be able to exit their practice when they would like to. So they're going to have to work forever, because dental practices, at the end of the day, don't sell for a ton of earnings, right? Like if you're selling a technology company, it's a great story. My biggest client, he's based up in Washington, sold a technology company, $200 million, rode off into the sunset. Great story for him. Dental practices don't sell at that kind of multiple, right? So you've got to begin planning. 15 to 20% is the number that I like to say to people. If you're saving 15 to 20% on an annual basis, you will be fine. Right? There's a quote by General Patton. He says, an imperfect plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan executed 2 weeks from now. So if you're saving that 15 to 20%, that might be that imperfect plan that you're violently executing on, you'll get to the finish line and be fine. It's the job of guys like me and these guys to provide optimum strategy around what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it and how you're utilizing taxes with obviously all the recent changes, and making sure we can get as much money into your pockets as we possibly can. So speaking to what it is that I do, it's a rather confusing area for people, I think, sometimes. You know, like, so I'm going to hire this financial advisor, and when people think of the financial advisor, they think of, you know, the money guy, and I'm going to make some investments, and that money's going to grow over time, and things are going to be great. I think if you're working with a good, competent advisor, though, it should encompass much more than just that individual component. So there's a host of different things that need to be taken care of that the financial advisor might not necessarily do. But just because we don't do them, it doesn't make them any less important, right? So having someone that's really looking at your entire balance sheet, we probably timed out on that. Actually, I'll need to log back in. No, it's okay. Let me. Let me just log back in. It actually kind of goes hand in hand with what we were just talking about on the accounting side of things, because on the accounting side of things, you think of, you know, your P&L. On your professional side of things. On your personal side of things, you think about a balance sheet. My first car was a Mazda. It's okay. Perfect. All right. So there's Dr. New Dentist up there. So you think about it at balance sheet, assets minus liabilities equals your net worth. So for most of you, you're younger in your careers, that net worth is actually probably in the red. There's probably some student loans attached to it right now. I would imagine for most of you, somewhere in the neighborhood of 200,000 to 400,000 is about what I typically see. I see some nods of the heads probably confirming what I'm saying. So assets minus liabilities equals your net worth. Net worth, I describe it the same way to every single client in the exact same fashion. It tends to resonate, they tend to remember. Net worth is the composite of every financial decision that you have ever made in your life, right? So the first birthday check you got from your grandparents, to the cars that you drove in here, the phones that you have, every dollar that has come into your life and subsequently left your life is reflected inside of net worth, right? So we want to be sure we can keep that number as safe as humanly possible, right? And so it doesn't just fall to the investments or the finance side of things of growing your balance sheet. There's so much more inside of it that goes along. In working with an advisor who's actually going to look at everything that's going on in your life, right? Now, when you think of the investment guy, you might not necessarily think of auto insurance, right? But it's something that can affect your life if something were to happen. So if we leave here, when we leave here, we can't stay here forever. So when we leave here tonight, what's your name? V? Okay, so we leave here tonight, knock on wood, this isn't going to happen, it's just a scenario. I get in a car accident, I step out of the car, what's someone going to ask? One, we're going to make sure we're okay. And then they're going to say, hey, let's exchange information, right? And I'm going to say, hey, I'm Travis Scribner, I'm random finance guy. Here's my information. V, you leave here in a car, your car, and you get into an accident. When you exchange information, what's going to happen? Because your name's not V anymore. It's actually Dr. V, right? You guys have become walking targets, right? So anything that happens, I've got clients of mine who own personal injury firms, and believe me, as soon as they find out that you're a doctor, and they will, they're going to try to get as much as they possibly can from you. Your targets in society, not only from patients potentially, but just moving through your normal course of life. So identifying your auto insurance, it sounds like something that's so weird. Why is my financial advisor talking to me about this? But if all of a sudden you're sued for X amount of dollars, that's going to damage your balance sheet in a way that we can't protect. So we want to make sure you have optimum protection around all these different things, right? So it's truly holistic financial planning, not let's just talk about your investments and how much they're growing on a year-over-year basis. Even down to a point, they mentioned how you can save money inside of your practice. There's multiple ways to save money, even in something as small as auto insurance. So, do you know what the deductible is on your car insurance right now? What is it? Oh, you did. I'm sorry. Okay, so you're definitely. Oh man, I knew it. What's your? Yeah, right as I twist the knife. Sorry. What's your deductible? 1,000. Okay. Was it always 1,000? Mm. Good move. So then you upped it to 1,000. Why'd you up it? A lower premium on a monthly basis. So that's actually really good. So I'll run into a lot of people and they'll have a deductible of 500, even 1,000 sometimes, right? So I backed my car into a pole about a year ago. Sucked. Just plowed right into it, just wrecked my back fender or bumper. And so it cost $1,200 to fix, right? And so you ask yourself, okay, so if it costs $500 to fix, would you pay the deductible or would you just pay out of pocket? Most people say, well, I'd just pay the out of pocket because I don't want my insurance premiums to go up, right? Well, what about 1,000? Would you pay the deductible or would you pay out of pocket to keep your premiums the same? So the question becomes an analysis of where's the crossover point where V says, you know what? I don't want to write that check. I'm going to pay the deductible now. So if we can raise deductibles sometimes, reduce monthly premiums, create more money back into your pocket. It was funny. I had a client randomly before said, hey, it's only like $70 a month, right? $70 a month is not really that big of a deal. I tell you what, can you scroll to the top? And then go to the calculators on the far right, I'm sorry. Far right, just click on that. Then click on the future value calculator's already there. So call it $1,200, call it about $1,000 a year, right? Yep, future value is fine. So so put just annual payment $1,000. And let's say, if you Googled the S&P returns over the last, 50, 60, 70 years, it's going to be right around 11%. I think that's aggressive. We'll even say 9%, right? And you stretch that out for 30 years. You can either move the slider or, yep, right? They see that number, and all of a sudden that $70 over the course of time is actually $150,000, right? So these little decisions, right? It's the pebble in the pond. These little decisions, when extrapolated over long amounts of time, there's real world financial implications inside of those. So you go back to the other one for me. There you go, perfect. Homeowners insurance, along with the same thing. Umbrella insurance is a big one. Again, these are areas that I don't even actually operate in. These are areas that I'm not compensated to do anything with, but these are conversations that we have with all of our clients, speaking to exactly what we were saying of holistic financial planning. We want to make sure your balance sheet is as protected as it can possibly be, because before we get into the work that we actually do, we want to make sure there's a foundation set that's going to keep you safe. So umbrella insurance, if you're not familiar with that, that's excess liability coverage. So you get in that car accident, you say your coverage limit's $500,000 and you get sued for $1 million. Where's that $500,000 gap come from? Comes from you, right? You're going to be potentially responsible for that money. So instead of being personally responsible for it, the umbrella insurance kicks in to gap the coverage amounts between what you could potentially be sued for and what your coverage limits are. A host of different ways. If you've got small children, an accident at a birthday party at the house, all of these different things that expose you to financial risk that we want to make sure are taken care of. I think one of the big things, and it speaks to the work that Elevate does as well, is we've been working in this space for a long time. We've kissed a lot of frogs to find the princes. You two being princes. We've gone through a lot of collateral professionals to find the good ones, right? Whether it's the property and casualty people, the auto insurance guys, all the wills and trusts, which I'll get to, all these different people, we've found good collateral professionals. And so in working with our firm, you essentially get access to those other people as opposed to you having to just open the phone book and find whoever you may see. So umbrella insurance, so covering your excess. Disability insurance, always one of the big ones. Show of hands, who's got disability? I know at least one person in here does. Boom. Okay, great. Disability insurance, it's the huge one to me. You go to school for a long, long time, and you stand to make a lot of money. Protecting your income is the most important thing, and I think doing it the right way and doing it with the right companies is a major decision for people. So the fact that every hand went up, I feel better about that. There's usually some that don't. So no, there's not. So it's just disability insurance is just going to be based on your income levels. Yeah. So disability insurance companies will cover 60% of your income. 60%. And that money comes to you tax-free as well. So they're not going to give you, 100% because you probably just stay at home the whole time, as opposed to going back to work. But 60% gets you pretty close to where your after-tax income would be. But that's the max they'll cover. So irrespective of hours, it's just income. You have to show W-2s or tax returns to show, how much you're earning, and then they'll come with the maximum coverage amount that they'll get you for. So good that you guys are taken care of there. Long-term care insurance, if something were to happen to you and you needed assisted living. Long-term care insurance for me, so if you needed to go into assisted living, it would come in and take care of you. Where it's become a hotter button issue for people around our age, I'm trying to lump myself in there, I'm probably older than most of you, I financially support my mom. Right? So taking care of, do you have parents that you may potentially be financially responsible for? That's something that you may want to initially plan for at a younger age, right? It's tough to think about that sometimes 20, 30 years out. I certainly wasn't thinking about it at 30, at 38. It's my reality. So thinking about potential planning for your parents, in-laws, these different things, we want to forecast out, we're not going to be able to predict the future with utter certainty, but if these are things that could be looming on the horizon, let's address them now while they're more cost effective for you to do as opposed to later. Wills and trusts, making sure assets are protected, taken care of. You're in a unique situation. It sounded like you're going into business with your husband. So you've got ironclad contracts there with the state through wedding licenses, but making sure wills and trusts, if you've got kids, show of hands, any kids in the room? Okay. Wills and trusts done? Okay. So I'm going to come to you on this. No, okay, I'll stay here. I'm just going to keep picking on you. Okay. Wills and trusts, people usually think about it and then never end up taking care of it. I could say almost to a client, I sit in front of them, I say, do you have it done? They kind of all give the same response. They all kind of laugh. We've thought about doing it. We just never did it. If something were to, how many kids? One? Boy or girl? Boy, okay. So if something happened to you and your husband, where would he go? Does he know that? Your husband doesn't know that? I know you haven't. I would have been, yeah, I know you haven't. Of course you haven't. We have those conversations sometimes in front of the actual attorney. So I like to have people have to begin to think about these things before they even happen. And we've had some times where myself and our attorney have stepped out of the room and we've let husbands and wives hash it out, and sometimes they've gone home and they've needed some more time to think about it, right? Because it was funny because you didn't even think about it. You just instinctively gave the answer of where he would go instantly. Does your husband know? Say, I don't know, right? So situations can get kind of ugly, and the last thing we want when a family's dealing with that kind of grief is to have a situation like that come into play. Even in kind of extrapolating, I'll drop down a little bit further. If you notice life insurance down there as well. So wills and trusts can give someone control even when they're not here. I'll throw myself under the bus here. So if my parents would have passed away when I was 15 or 16 years old, and Travis at 18 would have gotten a large sum of insurance money handed directly to him, I can assure you that I wouldn't be standing in front of you right now as this productive member of society, right? $3 million dropped into my life at age 18 would have been bad for everyone. I wouldn't have been responsible enough to handle that, I don't believe. Making sure that assets are passed to a will, or through the will to the trust, can then dictate how those assets are passed to your heirs, right, or to your children. So now instead of at 18 then becoming an adult by society's terms, I certainly was not, it will now pass to the trust, and the trust will dictate as those assets are passed out. So you may say, okay, well at age 18, X amount can come out for education, and at 25 they have access to 30% more, 50% more, whatever it may be. But you can set benchmarks of when that money is accessible. You can even put parameters around it, such as they've got to graduate from school, or they've got to do these different things that they've got to do to unlock money inside of it. But again, it gives our kids, or gives our children, the best chance of success, as opposed to them just getting. You guys are going to make a lot of money throughout the course of your career. It's awesome. It's the price you've paid to get to where you are. Making sure it's handed to the generation behind you in the most appropriate way, I think is a wise decision to make. So as I brought it up and I saw all of your heads kind of move that you've thought about it, I implore you to now take care of it. If you need a recommendation, call me. I would be more than happy to get you the attorney that I use for all of my clients. And again, it's the same nod of approval I give to these guys. I can speak so highly because he actually does my taxes, right? I can speak so highly to the attorney that I use because he does all of my business planning as well. He's done all my estate work as well. So if you need someone, get it done. There's a couple of you whose numbers in here I already have, so I'll call to make sure it gets done. All right? Brought me down to life insurance as well. Again, it's one of those things we just don't think about, I think, sometimes as we're younger. But we're never going to be as young and as healthy as we are today. So guaranteeing purchasing insurance irrespective of the type, that's a different discussion, but irrespective of the type, while you are young and healthy, is usually a wise decision, just to guarantee that you've got that benefit for you later on in life. Questions on any of this that I've gone through so far? Yes, Doc.
If I could just jump in here about buying it while you're young and healthy. Buy as much as you can for as long as you can. Now, if you're going to go into business, the banks are going to ask you, well, how are you going to back up this loan? They're not worried about your ability to earn the money and pay it back, because we as a profession, we tend to do that. But what should happen if you get hit by a car? Or you and your husband get hit by a car? And you're on disability, you can't work, and you have $1 million loan from a bank for the build-out. They're going to want to get paid. And usually their trump card is say, okay, here's the deal. You're going to have to go get term life insurance, or whatever document they want, and you're going to have to put us as the first creditor on there. So
you probably just went through that. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have your life insurance as your asset
Yeah.
to offset all
Yeah.
the other debts.
No, that's exactly. Well, they're getting their money one way or the other, right? And so sometimes you'll have to repurpose the beneficiaries of your life insurance to the bank as opposed to your family because you don't have enough to cover the amount that they want.
Just remember, when you pay off your business loan,
Change that.
to change.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. If you got a good advisor, they should cash out for you. And then even speaking a little bit to, there's references about wanting to buy a practice. If you've got disability insurance, you want to look into what's called disability overhead as well. I don't know if you have that. So disability overhead, if something were to happen to you, you can't practice, it's great. V's getting her money, she's got this great disability insurance policy, she's getting paid. But what about the overhead of running her office? What about paying her staff? What about paying the rent on the office space? Those things don't stop because you're too sick or injured to work. Disability overhead policies can step in and cover that. So that's something you may want to look into since you actually are like at the finish line of buying a practice where it's a bit earlier for everyone else. It's just something to think about there. So once you get through the litany of all of these things, that's when you can actually, in my mind, begin having the discussion about investment strategies, where you should be putting money, how you should be investing, where it should be saved. Because you think, when we get dressed in the morning, right, there's a very specific order in which we get dressed, right? My underwear goes on, then my pants go on, not the opposite way. So we want to make sure we're getting dressed in the right financial order as well. So let's take care of the things. If you think as you move through the course of your career, walking along this path, we want to make sure at every step of the way that we can't get beaten backwards along the path, right? So we want to put as many measures in place as we can to keep us safe before we start moving too far down the path. So once these kinds of things are taken care of, then it allows us to move into the more complex conversations around investment strategies, financial planning, and how money should actually be allocated. So again, it's getting dressed in the right financial order. And I'm like right there at time. I know everyone's saying. wives or husbands and kids in this room, so I want to keep it to like 9 o'clock talking about
Okay.
finances.
15 minutes of video.
Okay, great. So if you can, I'll talk to student loans a little bit, I guess. Any student loans in the room? Hands go up. How you pay them? You're an IBR? Okay.
Just pay as much as I can.
Much as you can.
Monthly payment,
The normal standard repayment,
25 year.
25 years. So you the income based as well. Okay, great. So income based prepayment, and you're just paying as much as I can. Okay, cool. All right. So different schools of thought. Well, yeah. You still got some? Okay, good. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, I raised my right hand with the military, so
Yeah,
I
that's
didn't
true.
know anything.
Yeah, good move. Very, very good move. Different schools of thought around student loans. Okay, so most people, when they come out, they see the sticker shock of the 10-year repayment and say, hey, I'm going to go into one of these income-driven repayment strategies. I'm going to IBR or revised pay-as-you-earn. That's where most people end up falling. So, coming to you, Aiden. So 25 years, your student loan payment. What happens at the end of 25 years? Do you know?
Have a celebration.
Okay. Yeah, it is a celebration. Yeah. Okay, I'll accept that. It's a celebration. So it's a celebration. So you're done with your student loans, and they say, hey, you went into the income-based repayment program. We forgive the remaining balance that you have on these student loans. Right? Is that about right? So it's like my least favorite thing of how that's positioned and how that's worded, because you're not really forgiven that amount in 25 years. You know how it works?
They're going to tax you.
That's it. In that 25th year, whatever amount was forgiven, very loosely, is going to come to you as taxable income in that year, right? So let's say you make $200,000 in that 25th year, and you earn, you make $200,000, and they forgive $150,000. Well, your taxable income for that year is now $350,000, not $200,000. I think that just clicks for you. Yeah, I get one of those, and every time I say that, I'm like, wait, what? So what we've got to know, we've got to begin planning proactively now for a tax bill that's looming in the future. We don't know what tax brackets are going to be. The problem is, I think when sometimes people see, I'm going to go into IBR, my standard payment would have been $6,000 a month, my IBR payment's $2,000 a month. This is great. That $4,000 is mine. It's not.
Can you choose not to make it?
No. Well, you could stroke a check and just pay the balance back of whatever's left is owed, which would cost you more. It's still going to be a reduction.